Jabari for three and the win. Yeah! He got it!
We are here to fuel Rockets News, this Rockfield podcast. Of course, I am your host, Lashard Binkley. I am a credentialed writer covering the Houston Rockets and the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. You can find my written work over at Rockets on that side. You can find me also on Twitter X at Binkley Hoops. And usually you can find me a couple of times a week. I'm on with Nate Griffin of Fox 26 Houston, talking about your Houston Rockets. So you can always find me on TV. You can find me on radio sometime over at 610. So you got to find me all over the place. But on today's show, what I wanted to talk about was, of course, your Houston Rockets, and of course, Jabari Smith, who was the star of the game last night. The Rockets win 125-105 with Utah Jazz. For once, they actually beat a bad team that they're supposed to beat, and they actually beat them comfortably. They didn't need any type of late game heroics. They did exactly what they should do against a horrible team in the Utah Jazz, who was obviously the front office is trying to tank games. Pretty much the entire roster is out. So it was good to see the Rockets kind of take care of business. And the star of that game last night was Jabari Smith, who had 31 points in last night's game. This is actually the first time he's had back-to-back games of 20 points or more in the last two seasons. So he is definitely playing some of the best basketball of his career. And what I wanted to talk about in particular was how important Jabari Smith is. To me, he's one of, if not the most important part of the Houston Rockets. And I know you're thinking like, well, that's Kevin Durant and Alperensengun, is it not? They're the best players. But when it comes to importance to the team, to their success, you know what you're going to get from Alperensengun. You know what you're going to get from Kevin Durant. But Jabari Smith is kind of the X factor of this team. And I'm going to break it down into three parts of this season. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about after we go through all three parts of the season. Of course, kind of give a little bit of background on Jabari Smith before we get into it. If you're a Houston Rockets fan, you know most of this already. But of course, Jabari Smith Sr., Jabari Smith's father, Junior's father, played in the NBA for 4 seasons for several teams before he went overseas to finish out his professional career. And while he was playing overseas, he saw where the NBA was going to. It was going to more of a big man, being able to shoot from the outside, being able to score kind of from all over the court. So that's kind of where he modeled Jabari Smith's game when he was training him as a kid, as he was growing up. Jabari Smith was one of the best high school players in the entire country. He started playing senior ball when he was a sophomore. That led to him being one of the most, highly recruited players going into college. He played 1 year at Auburn, where he was one of the best college players in the NBA, or in college basketball, where he averaged 17 points a game. And that kind of led to speculation that Orlando was going to take him number one overall. Of course, we know now a lot of the reports that came out were either fake or just flat out wrong, because Orlando ended up taking Paulo Banchero, the guy that the Rockets were rumored to have on their radar, because they thought that he would be still there at number 3 behind Jabari and Chet Holmgren. But as we know now, he fell to the Rockets at number 3, which was a cursing and a blessing, because at the time the Rockets were still in the middle of their rebuilding phase. Stephen Silas had taken over the team. The Rockets were kind of in a transition phase. They had already traded away their franchise player, James Harden. Most of Westbrook had left before that. Daryl Morey, the longtime GM, had left. So they were definitely in a rebuilding phase, which means that players and coaches are definitely trying to win, but the front office, that wasn't exactly their number one priority. Their priority was getting high draft picks to kind of build towards the future. A lot of young guys. A lot of times the Rockets were, if not the youngest, one of the youngest teams in the NBA at the time. And it was just kind of you go out there, roll the ball out, and see what happens. The Rockets had their worst 3-year stretch when it came to winning losses during the rebuilding phase. And keep in mind, the Rockets been in Houston for over 50 plus years, and they had their worst 3-year stretch not too long ago. And Jabari Smith came in kind of the tail end of that. And when you're a player coming into the league, of course, having a lot of opportunities that you'll have on a rebuilding team, a lot of shots, a lot of points to be had. You get plenty of minutes. All that's great. So that's the blessing part of it. The curse part of it is that there's no development, there's no game plan, there's really no structure. And for a young guy that's trying to develop in the league, you definitely need that structure. You need a team that has a real plan in place that kind of help you get better as a player. And that's kind of the problem when you come into bad teams a lot of time is that there is a reason why they're bad. And Jabari kind of saw that in his first season, how the Rockets struggled. And when you're losing 60 plus games in a season, that takes a toll on any player, especially a young player that's used to winning. That'll take a toll on you. And it takes a little bit to kind of get over that losing mentality. So that when they finally did bring in MA, they brought in veteran players that kind of went away from the youth movement, where the entire team is like 23 years or younger. They brought in players like Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Jeff Green, Aaron Holiday, guys that have been in the league that have been there, done that, can kind of help guide these players, and it paid off automatically right away. The Rockets went 41-41 that first season, 19-game improvement, which was the best in the NBA that season. And we started to see development from all the younger guys like Alperensengun, like Tari Eason, and Jabari Smith. They started to prove that, hey, they're one of the better teams in the league around that number 2, number 3 season. But surprisingly, even though Rockets having more success on the court, it was one of the most stressful years. It was the first year he had a major injury. He suffered a hand injury the first part of January, the first day of January during a practice. He suffered that hand injury that kept him out for several weeks. And even when he came back for the first time in his career, he was coming off the bench because Amenthompson was doing so well at the forward position. The Rockets decided just to keep Amenthompson in the starting lineup. And instead of complaining like some players would do or have some type of microaggression, Jabari Smith, I remember asking him when he came, the first day he came back, he said all he cares about is playing basketball. He doesn't care where if he's come off the bench, if he's stopped there. He just happy to be back playing basketball again. That's the type of player Jabari Smith is. And that's why he's so important to this team, because a lot of times the Rockets don't call, say actually 99% of the time, they don't call plays from the multiple times. But he doesn't complain. He goes out there, he does all the dirty work on offense and defense. And when we break down these numbers, you'll see later in the show exactly what I'm talking about. But during that season, like I say, he started to come off the bench. The Rockets won finished second in the West, was one in the NBA. But unfortunately, that meant that their first playoff series in the last 5 seasons would be against their longtime nemesis rival, because they never beat them in the playoffs. So it's kind of hard to say that they're a rival of Golden State, but the Rockets' kryptonite is Golden State in the playoffs. And it kind of went like it's went the other several times. The Rockets ended up losing 7 games. Most of the players on the team struggled. Jalen Green had one good game in that playoff series in game 2. Other than that, he struggled. Alpe started slow, but he started to pick up towards the end. Fred VanVleet was the main reason why they even got to a game 7, because he got hot in those last several games, at least before game 7. Jabari Smith, though, again, was still only playing around 20 minutes a game, something I'm sure he had to get used to because he wasn't used to that in his first couple seasons in the NBA. But he shot in the limited time he shot 50% from the field. Yes, he did have some turnovers in that playoff series, but he was one of the few guys that actually made shots throughout the entire series. Like I said, shooting 50% from the field, shooting very well from 3-point range. So it was something that a lot of people were looking forward to, kind of a springboard in the next season. That was kind of the question all offseason, was would he start? And then Green and Dylan Brooks and brought in Kevindurant. That was kind of the question entire offseason when it came to Jabari Smith. Is he going to be in the starting lineup, or will it be Tari Eason? Will it be Reed Shepherd? Who's going to move into that starting lineup now that 2 of your starters are gone? So, of course, we end up finding out that Jabari Smith was the guy that moved into that starting lineup. Great, just like the Houston Rockets. And now you're going to start to kind of see the theme of what my whole video is, why I say Jabari Smith is so important, because the Rockets have been up, down, and now they're up again. To start the season, the first 2 months of the season, and also I'll preface this by saying that the schedule played a part in this as well, because the Rockets had a really favorable schedule from the start of October, when they first game in October, to the end of November. So also kind of keep that in mind as well. But the Rockets started off 13-4 to start the season. They were one of the best teams, had one of the best records through 17 games. And guess who was playing well during that time? It was Jabari Smith. Jabari Smith started off the season averaging a career high 15 points in those first 17 games. He shot 39% from three-point range, was playing some of the best defense of his entire career. Like I said, the Rockets had one of the best records during that time frame. And a big part of that was because of Jabari, because if you watch any Rockets game, you know exactly what's going to happen. Rockets don't run a lot of offensive sets. So that means that they get the ball to Kevin Durant at the top of the key. They get the ball to alperensengun. And a lot of times they have to create the offense. They have to create the double teams. The guy they leave open is usually Jabari Smith, because Amenthompson is usually, so they don't usually leave him open. So it's Jabari Smith. So when Jabari is shooting 39% from three-point range, that plays a big, that makes a big difference when it comes to Houston Rockets offense. In fact, the Rockets had the number one offense in the first season, which was surprising to everybody. They were a low volume three-point shooting team, but they were the best three-point shooting team for several weeks to start the season. And a lot of that, but then December hit, and the Rockets schedule again did get a lot tougher. Started to struggle, and mainly Jabari Smith. Jabari Smith probably had his worst shooting stretch of his career during this time frame. December 1st to the middle of January, when the Rockets really struggled. The Rockets were only 10 and 11 during that time frame. And guess what? Jabari struggled during that time frame. Jabari Smith had, like, during that period, he still was averaging over 15 points a game, but he was only shooting 32% from three-point range. Even his free throw percentage was down to like 77%. And like with any player, but definitely with Jabari, when he's struggling on the offensive end, his defense started to struggle. He started to miss assignments on defense. He wasn't playing, I won't say he wasn't playing as hard, because he's always seen to play hard when he's out on the court, but he was definitely missing defensive assignments, tougher defense as he was playing before. And just as he struggled, the Rockets struggled during that time frame. Like I said, it was sometimes where the Rockets, during the month of December to the beginning of January, the Rockets were bottom, I would say, three in pretty much all categories, from three-point shooting to field goal percentage to free throw shooting. They were one of the worst offensive teams during that stretch. And so it's actually shocking that the Rockets were even 10 and 11 during this time frame from December 1st to January 15th, because their offense was pretty horrendous. That when their defense kind of kicked in to help them out. And also that was before Steven Adams got hurt. So they were still one of the more dominant rebounding teams in the NBA. So that definitely played a part in it. But again, Jabari Smith starts to play bad, and then the Rockets start to play bad. It all lines up perfectly. So now we go from January 16th until now, up until Jabari Smith's 31-point game, where he kind of just stuffed his stat sheet across the board. From the middle of January to now, now we're towards the end of February, Jabari Smith is playing the best basketball of the entire career. And this is over an 18-game stretch. And guess what the Rockets' record is during that 18-game stretch that Jabari Smith is playing really well in? The Rockets are 12-6. So again, no surprise that Jabari Smith starts to play well again. The Rockets' record goes to it is a lot better than it was during the time frame right before this. And again, don't get me wrong. If they don't have alperensengun or don't have Kevin Durant, it doesn't matter how great Jabari Smith is, the Rockets will suffer. Don't get me wrong. I know who the best players on the team are. I'm not saying that. But it is a big coincidence that when Jabari Smith is starting to play well, guess what? The Rockets are starting to play well, because he just does so much for the Rockets. He's one of the best mid-range shooters. He's one of the best three-point shooters. Outside of amenthompson, I would say he's the Rockets' most versatile defender, especially now that Dillon Brooks is gone. During that time frame also, so let's go through his numbers during this 12-6 stretch for the Houston Rockets. He's shooting 49% from the field, 42% from three-point range, and he's also shooting 77% from the free throw line, which is still about the same what he's doing before. But he's also playing elite defense. He's not missing defense assignments. During this time frame, he's averaging almost a block and a half per game, which is first on the team during that time frame. He's definitely their best rim protector on the team. The Rockets, surprisingly, are one of the best shot blocking teams in the NBA. They don't have one guy like Wembanyama averaging 3 blocks a game. They're a team effort, but Jabari is the best out of everybody when it comes to shot blocking. He's had some of the most spectacular dunks in on the entire blocks on the entire team. I remember when he got dunked on, I said on like the fact that he goes for blocks. Even when he gets dunked on, he doesn't really care. He still goes for block shots. So it's no coincidence that when Jabari Smith is playing really well, guess what? The Rockets are playing really well as well. So the fact that Jabari Smith is playing the best basketball of his entire career, and the Rockets are finally together after that tough December and mid-January stretch. Like I said, to me, it's no coincidence. And this is why I said that Jabari Smith is, if he's not the most important player on the team, he's one of the most important parts of the Houston Rockets. And I know a lot of people were down on him, especially during that tough shooting stretch. And don't get me wrong, he was shooting horrible during that stretch. So I'm not going to sit up here and sugarcoat it or anything like that. But now you're starting to see why Jabari Smith is so important to the team. You know, why the Rockets are is always giving as many minutes as he does. I know a lot of people were like saying, wow, he shouldn't be horrible. And the whole time, like, Jabari Smith is too important to this team for him not to play 30-plus minutes a game, especially now with Steven Adams hurt. Of course, you were already out Fred VanVleet for the entire season. Jabari Smith is extremely important to this team. And if the Rockets have any chance to go deep into the playoffs, Jabari Smith has to continue to play like he's playing now, number 3 in the West. But if they go on a 2-game lose, guess what? They'll be right back down to the 5th seed, fighting to try to stay out of the 6th seed. So every regular season game is important. The game coming up tomorrow, I know it's against the Sacramento team that, if I'm not mistaken, they won their first game out of the last 17 games a couple of nights ago. But we know the Rockets' history with playing against bad teams, so they can't take any game for granted. But at the end of the day, this is why I say that Jabari Smith is one of, if not the most important X factor on this team. Because when Jabari Smith plays well, the Rockets play well, just like you saw at the beginning of the season. When Jabari Smith had, the Rockets struggle, just like you saw in the middle part of the season. Now, as we're getting towards the end of the season, the last 18 games, when Jabari Smith is playing the best basketball of his career, guess what? The Rockets are 12-6 during that time frame. So those are the reasons why I say Jabari Smith is important as he is. Of course, the Rockets will be back in action tomorrow against Sacramento Kings for heading down the road. I will be out at that game, bringing you pre and post game and everything in between. If you are subscribed to the channel, thank you as usual for all your support. Make sure you like the video, because when you do that, it helps me out with the algorithm. And also, if you're new to the channel, definitely thank you for jumping on and checking out this video. Please subscribe to the channel. As you see, I kind of do a little bit of everything here. I try to bring practice footage. I try to bring pre and post game as much as I can. I try to bring podcasts. I try to do a little bit of everything on this channel. I don't like just doing one thing. So definitely, if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe. And as usual, I appreciate all the support. And make sure you check out the next episode of Rocket Fuel Podcast.